Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Walk like a person. Walk like a person. Walk like a person, Frankie. The CIA as an organization has been around since 1947, and with that long old age, the organization has become one of much fear or laughter nowadays.
I think that we should hold ourselves to a stricter moral standard, and I would never allow CIA to be involved in coercive interrogations.
Where was that moral compass at the time?
We look at and say, oh, look at all those crazy things that have happened with the CIA and all that stuff. Look at all these crazy, wacky things that have happened with the CIA and all that stuff. That's so crazy. It has to just be coincidence, right?
Top secret CIA Weather Control Division, Dick speaking. I mean pizza store!
A lot of coincidences. Well, I've made like 4 videos now on the CIA, and they're things that have happened. The controversies, they spread deep. Guys, it's not a coincidence. It's just how they do it. Today, we have a little bit of an iceberg, a little bit of a CIA iceberg, some of the craziest shit that they've done, some of the craziest cover-ups, some of the craziest conspiracies. It seems as though these rapscallions have a finger in every pie. Oh. Or whatever. Isn't that right, Frankie? Huh? You were the director of the CIA for a short period, you and Todd Howard. That's Todd Howard of Bethesda Games, also a CIA operative. The 1954 Guatemalan Coup d'etat was the removal of democratically elected Jacobo Arbenz and his replacement and subsequent installment of a military dictatorship ruled by Carlos Castillo Armas.
Last year, Guatemala was dominated by the communists. That government did not have the support of the Guatemalan people.
This revolution was due to the CIA's covert operation they called Operation PBSuccess. And this operation was also funded by your favorite banana company. Yay! Chiquita Bananas.
I'm Chiquita Banana, and I've come to say bananas have to ripen in a certain way.
This has been a huge meme. I'm sure you've seen the Chiquita Banana War Money video meme that has spread around the internet. I think Wendigoon either has made a video about it or is making a video about it. I'm not exactly sure. I know he sent me pictures of a banana. His video gonna be way better than mine. Go check that out. Juan Jacobo Arbenz Guzman was a military officer and politician and the 25th president of Guatemala. He took office on March 15th, 1951 and continued social reform policies. These reforms included an expanded right to vote, the ability of workers to organize, legitimizing political parties, and allowing public debate. So he was a progressive leader in the hope of changing his country, Guatemala, for the better. All right, guys? It's beautiful is what it is. However, all of that would change when Uncle Sam would stand up and look down over South America and say, hey, that's a little bit too much freedom. We need some of that. Hey, what are you doing down there? You mean you don't have a crazed military dictator leader and you're actually trying to have some reason to live for your people and provide them with government and facilities and actual, society? We can't have that. You can't be a socialist. We'll kill you. Negativity would enter the scene for Juan when he would go and put forth a policy called the Agrarian Reform Law. The purpose of this law was to take land that was unused and uncultivated and use it. That is, the government would take the land and use it. This is still land that people own, so it's private property, but then the government would take it. So it's Marxist, right? You can just take the land and then we'll put it to better use because these people have 500,000 acres. They're not ever using it at all. And in turn, when the government would seize the land, they also would compensate the landowners. Then on top of that, the seized land would be used by poverty-stricken agricultural laborers. And all in all, Juan helped around 500,000 people and even the indigenous people who were the victims of the Spanish invasion. And yeah, so it was like, okay, let's get a couple seeds of Marxism. We got a small country. It's working out well. Communism does kind of maybe work on a small scale. I'm very communist when it comes to my family and my friends and stuff. I'm basically this guy, minus all the incel rage. Anyways, these laws and these policy, this reform caused by Juan started a rage within a company called the United Fruit Company, better known today as the Chiquita Banana Company. And you know that little sticker that's on the bananas, the little Chiquita thing?
I'm Chiquita Banana, that's my band, you see. If you want quality and flavor, always look for me.
That's them. That's literally them. Banana Company was outraged by the removal of its land, which makes sense. I have a lot of respect for private companies and stuff, and they were using it to defer tax burdens and all sorts of profit stuff. Profit reasons they had all that land, and then the government was like, you can't do that, you can't own that. Or whatever. That's the government. Me, I'm trying to like make things good and like talk to people and connect with people, and then that's the CIA back there. Feed me. I haven't paid him yet. Just kidding, I have. I'm being audited though. This episode is brought to you by Sour Boy Sour Candy. A little bit my own psyop here. Go to sour.gg and buy some candy. I got a special code for this video only. If you don't know what Sour Boys is, it is licorice, sour licorice that we make in-house. We do not use a co-manufacturer. We use natural dyes, natural flavors, ingredients. There's just a couple ingredients. We use old style, old world manufacturing techniques. It's really cool, and we do a new flavor every single damn week, and we launch new flavors every single week, Friday, 3 Central Standard, and you can use the following code. CIA is cool. No, let's do CIA is real. How about that? 20% off, 200 uses. There we go. Banana Company was upset, and because of this, they looked towards America for help. The United Fruit Company looked towards Big Daddy Omaha up north. Big Daddy money.
United Fruit was offered just over $1 million for its land. When Arbenz declared nationalization, the company, backed by the United States, claimed $16 million.
Specifically, they looked towards the CIA. I have no idea why, but it began to lobby the United States against Arbenz Juan and use the fear of communism's spread to... What? To do what they did. This is insane. To be clear, Juan Arbenz was against communism, but the United States was very suspicious and worried that he was actually under the Soviet Union's influence. How can you be against communism and also have some kind of social reform for your serfs? Bro, that looks really communist, if you ask me. That looks... I can sense some incel rage in you, is what the CIA said to Juan Arbenz. The United Fruit Company was the largest landowner in Guatemala and actually was worth more than the entire country's government's revenue, which is insane. So in a sense, they kind of had their own country in a little, you know, in a few ways. After this, the United Fruit Company began to slander the Guatemalan government and say things like, you are bad and I hate you, and you are a red commie scumbag. With the help of Edward Bernays, they spread a misinformation campaign to portray themselves, the company, as the victim of communist rule of Guatemala. So kind of the first meme. It's a mimetic virus, but instead of it being funny, and making you laugh because it's skibbity toilet brain rot, whatever the skibbity riz, I'm not exactly sure. It's actually, these guys are communists. I make banana. I make a lot of money. These guys are communist. Kill them, okay? This got President Eisenhower, who was the elected president of that time in 1952, to get quite riled up, and he commissioned a research study from a firm known to be quite hostile, and got a 235-page report that was insanely critical of the Guatemalan government. You know. The United Fruit Company spent over $1 million just to convince lawmakers and the American public that the Guatemalan government was corrupt and needed to be overthrown. Cue Operation PB Fortune. Since the Cold War had developed and began to get a little bit more serious, get a little hotter, the US government and its corporations were growing suspicious of the Guatemalan government and its potential Soviet involvement. What are you doing down there? Becoming communist? What are you? Some kind of bastard? What are you? Tomahawk missile. Normally that's reserved for magic missile, but this time it's Tomahawk missile. They didn't have Tomahawk missiles in 1950, unfortunately. During a meeting with Truman, the Nicaraguan dictator Anastasio Somoza Garcia stated if the United States supplied him with arms, he would deal with Guatemala. That was before Eisenhower and all this stuff happened. He didn't receive immediate support, but Truman signed and instructed the CIA to deal with and follow up on the proposal personally. So eventually, because Truman came before Eisenhower, you know, Truman, great influence over the CIA, all right? He was like the guy. The CIA would eventually contact Carlos Castillo Armas, a Guatemalan army officer who had been exiled to Guatemala years prior, and they believed that Castillo would lead the coup and supplied him with weapons and $225,000. But you give me some weapons and 225 grand, I'll lead a coup, all right? Shut up, dumbass. They knew he was corrupt and would be the perfect match for the corrupt bastard that they needed to lead the coup. They also got Venezuela and the Dominican Republic to approve and contribute to funding for the cause. And in the following weeks, they would begin planning which targets they were to take out for the success of the coup. The CIA had 58 Guatemalans on a list to arrest and get rid of as political enemies, with many more to be arrested in the future. And the plan was finally put into motion in 1952. A freighter that was borrowed from the United Fruit Company shipped loaded guns falsely listed as agricultural machinery into Guatemala. But before it could get crazy, the plan was canceled after the State Department of New Orleans discovered the plan and stopped the operation. But the CIA still sent funding to support Castillo and paid him $3,000 a month, which was more than enough to fund his rebel group. Are you telling me I can fund a rebel group for $3,000 a month? That's awesome. We fast forward to August of 1953, the goldfish memory of the State Department of New Orleans. Operation PBSuccess was ready to go. This time, with direct authorization from President Eisenhower, the CIA-led mission was given a budget of $2.7 to $7 million to overthrow the Guatemalan government with the help of the banana company, Chiquita Bananas. This is insane. They need to pay. They need to this is bad. Over 100 agents were recruited for the CIA, even those who were exiled from Guatemala and those in neighboring countries. Manuals for the assassination targets were distributed to appropriate officials, and these were the first known CIA assassination manuals ever recorded, which that's unbelievable. Assassination manuals? I want one of those. That's, I mean, here's a YouTube tutorial on how to assassinate somebody. Here's how you effectively overthrow the Guatemalan government. My name's Caleb. This is the Oompavilla channel. And all you've got to do is have $7 million and be really good friends with an extremely angry banana company called Chiquita. Oh, I scared you. I knew she was cute. She was locked in, being cute. Training camps. Oh. Wow, my voice cracked really badly. Training camps were placed in Nicaragua and Honduras, supplying the agents with bombers and weapons from the CIA. Bombs and weapons from the CIA. Military agreements were also signed so that the invasion of Guatemala could use some more dangerous, heavier arms. Then began the smear campaigns. They were already hard at work, readily spreading the message of the alleged communist influence in Guatemala and how it was been taken over by the red tide.
Well, we were faced here with the obvious intervention of a foreign power, because these homegrown parties are not really homegrown. They're being funded or advised by a foreign power, i.e. the Soviet Union.
We need to get them commies out. Look, I got a piece of paper signed by Dwight D. Eisenhower. Look at this. He got funny pants, that bastard. Sorry, that was Truman. Truman had funny pants, not Eisenhower. I'm sorry, I get my presidents mixed up. Juan, the Guatemalan president, aka Mr. Arbenz, became very desperate for help because he's being invaded by United States interests, essentially, and the CIA. He turned for help and weapons from Czechoslovakia, you know, which was part of the Soviet bloc at the time. And this, okay, this is how you start a proxy war. This is how you start a proxy war. This helped Arbenz for a little while, but also hurt him because it allowed the Americans to say, hey, look, they are working with the commies. I told you that. You they done fell under the communist influence. This heavily bolstered the smear campaigns, if you could imagine, because then they became true. They were basically communists at that point. However, the smear campaigns and the military activity were not enough to defeat Arbenz's military in Guatemala. The CIA had to incorporate more than just Castillo Armas' army of 480 men and U.S. aircraft. They had to resort to psychological warfare. And that, my friends, is my favorite part about the CIA. Psychological warfare. Now, how would they go about doing that? You probably are asking, typing. I can't read your comments live, all right? I can't, this video is not posted yet, okay? Basically, they would have the U.S. Information Agency create thousands of leaflets and articles throughout Latin America to smear Guatemala even more effectively. They threw the kitchen sink at him, bud. These leaflets, the article writing, also the government screening footage of Guatemala to show that they were falling into communist influence. They even targeted political leaders who weren't loyal to the US, sending them wooden coffins, non-functioning bombs, and nooses to just truly make it just Guatemala's the bad guy and we're the good guy or else kind of deal, you know? Pretty cool. The most successful part of their psychological warfare misinformation campaign was a radio station called the Voice of Liberation. Very Far Cry, very video game tropey. It all comes from this, guys. Everything comes from the CIA, it seems like. The Voice of Liberation began broadcasting on May 1st, 1954, spreading anti-communist propaganda and urging the people of Guatemala to resist the Arbenz government and support the opposition.
Guatemala, patria querida. Guatemaltecos hermanos.
The people of Guatemala, we are fighting against... I mean, maybe there's a snippet of it. That'd actually be kind of cool to put as B-roll. Here it is.
You can't break a man the way you break a dog.
That wasn't it. Anyways, the station claimed to be transmitting from a secret location within the jungle, a claim that many listeners believed because that's extremely compelling and cool. And he's like, oh, it's one of us. He's got his own little radio. This is Far Cry. The broadcasts reached so widely that even foreign countries considered it as an authentic source of information. However, the content was actually recorded and produced in Miami. Okay, guys, and it was shipped and broadcast via a mobile transmitter in Central America. And the station transmitted 2-hour bulletins twice a day, reaching as far as the capital of Guatemala, ensuring that everyone could hear it. On the 18th of June, 1954, Castillo Armas led a small force across the border from Honduras into Guatemala, and although their initial efforts were not particularly successful, the psychological impact of the radio broadcasts had convinced the Guatemalan government that the rebels were far stronger than they actually were. And with the CIA's assistance, Castillo Armas's force were able to call in aircraft support, including P-57s, to bomb strategic locations. Boom, boom, explosion, explosion. I don't want to do too much because my dogs will bark at me and I'll get really angry and I'll see red. And you'll see my incel rage. This aerial bombardment further weakened Juan's governmental resolve, which led to many soldiers laying down their weapons and to surrender and believing that all hope was lost. As one might when they're getting bombed by the most powerful country in the world. The Guatemalan government became increasingly desperate as Arbenz clung to the belief that his military still could fend off the invaders, and in his desperation, Arbenz armed a select corps of officers and even distributed weapons to civilians, hoping that they could help repel the attackers. However, this decision backfired disastrously as many of his own forces just turned against him because if you can't beat him, join him, I guess. Classic. And you can't beat the CIA, so, you know. I'm an asset. Hello, schizophrenic man. I'm a CIA asset. The situation quickly unraveled with his troops defecting and the psychological impact of the propaganda. Arbenz lost his will to continue the fight, and on June 27, 1954, he resigned from his position.
Todos sabemos cómo han bombardeado y ametrallado ciudades, inmolado a mujeres, niños, ancianos y elementos civiles indefensos.
And by October of 1954, Castillo Armas became president, winning 99.999% of the vote as the sole candidate. I love that. I love that so much. That's happened so many times, bro, where people just, they vote, and then, well, who's all on the ballot? Oh, just one guy. He won by a landslide. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Has that ever happened where it's just some guy everybody likes? Probably has happened. There's got to be just some guy who nobody even wants to run against because they're like, yeah, that guy's awesome. And he wasn't installed or supplanted by the CIA or some kind of evil alien regime or whatever. Anyways, despite the apparent victory, the conflict was not entirely over. The CIA launched Operation PB History, aimed at recovering and removing any incriminating documents left by the Arbenz administration. Their goal was to find evidence that the Guatemalan government had been under Soviet influence, and they scoured Arbenz's personal belongings, police records, and over 500,000 documents, but they found nothing to substantiate their claims. This failure, as you probably can imagine, led to some fairly widespread anti-American sentiment and shame, as the United States became known for toppling a legitimate democratic regime to protect the corporate interests of a banana company. Yep, That's pretty cool. And it wasn't until 1999 that President Bill Clinton formally apologized to Guatemala for the atrocities committed by the US-backed dictatorship. Yeah, so it's like 50 years late or whatever the
I will reaffirm America's commitment to shed light on the dark events of the past so that they are never repeated, and to help you implement the peace accords in a way that ensures that the human rights of the Guatemalan people are always respected.
By the way, that isn't all. It isn't all. It didn't just end in the 50s and then we're just like, hey, sorry. 40 years later, the coup had far-reaching consequences. It sparked a civil war in Guatemala that lasted from 1960 to 1996, during which 200,000 civilians were killed. And many believe that this brutal conflict was the direct result of the coup, which, in my opinion, relatively well highlights the devastating impact of our disgusting meddling and intervention in the region. So, CIA black sites. So skip ahead a bit. In the early 2000s, the public began to question the existence of black sites, secret, off-the-grid locations used by the government to detain prisoners in foreign countries for interrogation and often just abuse and torture as well, which sometimes they're assholes and they deserve it, but not all the time. Can y'all stop whatever the you're doing? I'm gonna take you to a CIA black site. They're fun now. They're like little Disneyland. Little Disneyland places. They got, oh, what are you doing right now? She's like, don't you dare take me to a CIA black site. I love Karl Marx. I'm a communist. I don't think the CIA is all that in a bag of chips. You do what? You're dumb as You're dumb as hell. You're stupid as the day is long. They love it when I talk to them. These black sites, you can probably imagine, allowed the government, our government, to operate without public oversight. And there was no solid proof of their existence until an article was published by Dana Priest on November 2nd, 2005, and it brought them to light. I actually remember when this came out. I was 9 years old. I was 9 years old, and I was reading the Times, and I saw that, you know, yet another overreach by the United States government. That my father told me. He said, son, it's hot outside. And I was like, Dad, it's November. Maybe take the jacket off. In the article, Dana exposed how these hidden bases were being used to commit horrific acts around the globe, and they were being paid for by our tax-paying dollars, which, like, that's, you know, you can do whatever you want. Really, I don't give a but, like, at the same time, if I'm paying for it, then you can sit and spend. We don't want you. We don't want you. I don't want to pay you to do stuff like that. Feed people instead. Feed people and, you know, let me buy more land. Don't take taxes from it. Maybe instead of preventing me from buying more land and starting businesses, maybe prevent foreign adversaries from doing that in my local area. Maybe China. Maybe prevent China from doing that in Texas, maybe. Or something. I'm not sure. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe protect us. Not by making black sites and hurting people a lot. Priest claimed that the CIA had established this covert prison system in 2001 following the September 11th attacks, and that it had been utilized in 8 different countries. And despite the United States government's refusal to confirm the existence of these sites, Priest asserted that they were real and that the creation of these sites was a direct response to the 9/11 attacks. So makes sense. You know, this is a new threat that we have never really faced before, or whatever, you know, whatever the way that they spin it is. I'm not exactly sure. By the way, even before 9/11, it was illegal for the United States to detain prisoners in isolation and operate in the manner that they were operating, but the black sites allowed them to do so in complete secrecy. So it's just, you know. In 2006, George W. Bush, president at the time, confirmed the existence of the black sites, acknowledging that they were indeed operating outside of the United States' jurisdiction and what they were allowed to be doing. And he probably didn't know. He said, watch this drive. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, and that's pretty cool. I mean, that's terrible. Whatever. Nuclear. George W. Bush justified the existence of the black sites as necessary for combating terrorism around the globe, much like the Patriot Act and every single other succession of rights or freedoms that we have in terms of privacy that we've given up since 9/11. A lot of justification for the necessity of combating terrorism around the globe. Ooh, the enemy! They're always there! Ah! In the wake of our new Pearl Harbor, as far as we can attest, the United States was determined to do whatever was necessary to maintain peace, even if it meant employing controversial methods, illegal methods, outside of our own jurisdiction. This revelation that a very, very brave woman released to the press publicly. Can't believe she did that and didn't die. It led to a lot of criticism, widespread criticism, with multiple articles, human rights organizations condemning the black sites as inhumane and unethical, because they are. Sure, some of the people that are in there are bad and they deserve to be flayed alive and put on a breaking wheel or whatever, but like, not for my taxpayer dollars. All right, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Who's doing it? This big decentralized government thing? Decentralized, actually sent. Let's not do that. That's bad. Let's not do that. Let's let the Navy SEALs do that. Let's let the Navy SEALs put 220 grains of subsonic lead between their head instead of spending my money keeping them alive. How about you don't keep them alive any longer than they need to be kept alive, if they're worthy of that. Obama came in 2009, and after he took office, he issued an executive order to shut down black sites permanently and to end the use of interrogation techniques such as waterboarding and all this bad, evil stuff. But yeah, there still were some though. They left some of them. They left some, which is pretty cool.
On January 22nd, 2009, President Obama signed an executive order, one of his first acts as commander-in-chief, to shutter the Guantanamo detention camps. But at the close of his second term, the promise is unfulfilled.
So what exactly was a black site, and how exactly did these things come to exist, and why? What the f is a black site? These secret locations were scattered across the globe, used to detain high-value targets to extract critical information from them. To put this into perspective, imagine a scenario similar to the game Ghost Recon Wildlands.
Hands, don't you move.
Relax,
I got him.
I'm not doing anything.
Nice. Oh god, dude.
I've
pooped the party.
More than everything you
Nobody move! This is a robbery! If I see any one of you mother beepers move, I'm gonna execute every last mother beepers.
A specially chosen Spec Ops team is deployed into a country. They must investigate, fight their way through, and capture high-value targets, and then transport them to a black site for interrogation and torture. It's a chilling thought, and those guys are really scary, and yeah, God bless America. And yeah, these were real, unlike Ghost Recon Wildlands, which was incredibly overrated, and like, well, maybe it was, I don't know, very repetitive. I don't like those games very much. I like them, but almost, you know, like it's fun, but it's almost fun. Make it an RPG game. Make it an RPG game. Give me skills and shit. Make it a RPG. I think there is skills. Make it better. One of the most notorious black sites was located in Poland, known in reports as Stargate. This site became one of the most controversial and significant black sites in the War on Terror.
A European court has found that Poland allowed the CIA to run a secret rendition and interrogation camp at a military base in the country. The Strasbourg-based court found Poland had cooperated in the preparation and execution of CIA rendition, secret detention and interrogation operations on its territory.
Among those reportedly held at Stargate were Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind behind the 9/11 attacks, and Abu Zabuyada, bunch of assholes, to be honest. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed actually has a hearing later this year against the United States of America for some of the stuff that he did and some of the stuff they found out. But it's this famous photo of him sitting there and he's like, or whatever, it looks like Saddam Hussein. I thought it was Saddam Hussein for a long time. No, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Guy's a asshole. But like, the reality of the situation is he's really bad, but it's like bigger, it's a bigger problem. It's a really complicated, complex issue. And I'd like to know your guys' thoughts down below. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, come torture him and all that stuff. But then it's like, they also do stuff to good people though. Like a lot of the stuff that the CIA has done and these people have done is like to good people though. And they've just kind of meddled and manipulated and, you know, were responsible for a lot of things that they claimed they weren't responsible for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's pretty complicated. I don't know. I say shut them down. Shut them down. Let me run it. The existence of these operations at the end of the day really underscores the lengths to which the United States is willing to go to combat terrorism to keep us all safe at home. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was subjected to extreme forms of torture, including waterboarding, where he was reportedly waterboarded over 180 times in a single month. That's a lot of times. And Abu Zubaydah faced similar treatment enduring waterboarding around 83 times. Rookie numbers. Get them numbers up. Waterboarding is a horrific technique that and pushes you to the brink of death. You do that over and over and over and over and over again. And you do this in small confined spaces, make people really uncomfortable, introduce positions that induce claustrophobia, you keep them awake for days on ends. These are the methods that were used in the black sites to break prisoners physically and mentally, eventually driving them to the point where they are told. But it doesn't work though. A lot of that stuff doesn't really work. They just don't talk, or they just say shit. They confess to shit. Like, torture doesn't really do anything, especially not to people who are literally willing to die for their cause. Like, does nothing, bro. I tell you what, I just tell them whatever they say. Who do you work for? And I'd say, Joe Biden. I don't know. During the heyday of the black sites and the torture, there was a lot of anger and hatred towards those who had attacked the United States, for good reason, obviously. This led to a willingness and readiness to use any means necessary to protect us against terrorism and whatever terrorism, it was communism, now it's terrorism. Like, that's the difference, really. It's the same thing, but it's like different, though, you know. Anyways, one particularly bizarre form of psychological torture involved playing a declassified playlist of music on a loop with songs ranging from the Bee Gees' Stayin' Alive to Drowning Pool's Bodies. It's hilarious, darkly so. Dark humor, liberal, relax. It's funny to imagine the torturers dancing to the Bee Gees while prisoners endure that staying alive, but not really though. Staying alive, not really though, you're dying. So it's humorous and all that stuff, but torture and everything, it's like bad and everything, ethical and all that stuff. But also they did kill thousands of people, a lot of these individuals, not all of them, but a lot of the individuals did kill thousands of people and were responsible for horrible. So, you know, the song choice does raise questions. I don't know if the guards were just playing their favorite songs or what the f exactly was going on, and they inadvertently turned that into instruments of torture. I tell you what, you listen to Spotify with me for a day, I'm using it as an instrument of torture as well. If you get tired of Chappelle Roan, and like, I don't know, whatever the f else I've been listening to, let's see. Just play the first one. Irish music. Little funk. A little bit of that. A little bit of that. A little bit of this. We mentioned the black site in Poland. There were numerous other black sites around the world, including locations in Thailand, Lithuania, and Afghanistan. And one of the most infamous of these facilities in Afghanistan was known as the Salt Pit. It was a repurposed brick mine turned into a black site prison. The Salt Pit was notorious not only for its brutal interrogation techniques, but also for a tragic incident that resulted in the death of a prisoner due to the harsh conditions. During the hot seasons, guards would hydrate and spray down the prisoners to prevent heat stroke. However, during the colder months, the situation became a bit more severe. A guy named Gul Rahman, a suspected jihadist and militant, was held at the Salt Pit, and he was reportedly uncooperative and often threatened to kill his guards, which led to his even harsher treatment. On November 20th, 2002, Rahman was stripped naked and shackled to the cold concrete floor in temperatures that were nearly freezing, and eventually he succumbed to the cold and died. And in spite of the circumstances, no one was ever held accountable for Rahman's death. And this is a true, pure example of the moral dilemma that this whole thing is. Because, like, suspected jihadist, okay, that's not good, right? That's not good. But, like, also, you can't just kill a guy, right? Maybe you can, though. I don't know. I don't know. All the books I read, they're like, don't do that. Forgive them. You know, that's what all the books that I read are saying. And then my mind's like, kill them, or whatever. No, my mind doesn't say that, but my friend's mind does, or whatever. Frankie, her mind, she says, kill them. She says, let them burn. She says, blood for the blood gods. So yeah, regardless though, it was an incredibly inhumane death. That's still a human being, whatever. It further fueled the controversy surrounding the existence and operations of the black sites. So, you know, bad press. I shouldn't say that's up. He's a jihadist, I don't care. Once these black sites were discovered, efforts were made to dismantle them as quickly as possible to deflect attention from the CIA.
CIA moved out of the stables after only a year and a half because of news reports in the Washington Post about the secret prisons, even though they did not name Lithuania. The building is now owned by the Lithuanian Intelligence Service.
However, on May 9th, 2018, during a nomination hearing for Gina Haspel to become the director of the CIA, a position she held from May 21st, so she got that shit, 2018, all the way to January 19th, 2021, the black sites resurfaced as a significant point of controversy.
Do you believe the previous interrogation techniques were immoral? I'm not asking, do you believe they were legal? I'm asking, do you believe they were immoral?
Senator, I believe that CIA did extraordinary work to prevent another attack on this country given the legal tools that we were authorized to use.
Please answer yes or no.
And the hearing sparked discussions about the black sites, raising questions about redacted sections of what records, what happened and what actually transpired at them.
I was told that interrogation experts had designed the program, that the highest legal authority in the United States had approved it, and that the President of the United States had approved it, as well as a trusted leadership at the Central Intelligence Agency.
The hearing scrutinized Gina Haspel's deep involvement in the black site programs of the CIA, questioning her role in overseeing the program and the use of abusive and torturous methods on prisoners.
So I believe I and my colleagues in the Counterterrorism Center were working as hard as we could with the tools that we were given to make sure that we were successful in our mission.
It's like, torture's bad. Torture's wrong. We're civilized people. We're civilized people. That's my stance. The methods were not only f***ed up and inhumane, but they also led to allegations that the CIA had deliberately destroyed evidence, which wouldn't be surprised, including tapes documenting the torture, which constituted a clear destruction of evidence, it seemed. What are you doing standing here looking at me, Petey? The hearing raised more concerns consistently, repetitively about the legality and morality of the CIA's actions. It seems like that's what all this is about all the time. It's just like, is this legal? No, it's not.
What do you do to human beings in U.S. custody? Bloody Gina! Bloody Gina! Bloody Gina! Bloody Gina! You are a torturer!
Some reports suggested that the torture techniques were used despite being largely ineffective. That's where it's like interesting to me, because it doesn't even work. So why are you doing it? It's got to be bad for the people who are doing it as well. It can't be good unless you're a psychopath, I guess. The implication was that the CIA used a systematic effort to cover up the abuse and strategies employed at these black sites, and once again, more controversial practices from our big brother. Gina was involved in the black sites. She faced significant opposition, but she was never punished. It doesn't seem like, it's not like she was actually doing it, so I'm not really sure. She was literally rewarded for all this stuff by being granted the top position in the CIA and probably one of the most influential positions in the entire government, I think. I'm not sure, but black sites are still around there. Let me know what you guys think about that one, because I've got to be careful with what I say. I know I'm just crude and I make a lot of jokes and I balk and I comment and I use humor and I'm an idiot and stuff. But like at the end of the day, I do try to be an ethical person. I try pretty hard. I read a lot of books about ethics and hermeticism or whatever I don't know. I don't want to be a bad guy. And sometimes it feels like being a bad guy is doing the easy thing. And doing the easy thing is being mad, revenge, and hurting people, and like not literally physically hurting them, but like exacting, what does your ego want you to do? And the hard thing is to forgive and rationalize and calm down, don't react, etc. That seems like the difficult thing. So on an ordinary day, August 15th, 1977, astronomer Jerry R. Amon was conducting observations at the Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope. A few days later, while sifting through data printed on lined paper, Amon noticed something extraordinary, something bizarre. A signal was detected at 1420 megahertz that lasted for 72 seconds. 1420 megahertz is particularly significant because this is the frequency that extraterrestrials might use to communicate. That is what scientists believe, not me. I didn't say that. That's not a claim I'm making, but they believe this because it corresponds to the natural emission of hydrogen, which is the most common element in the universe. If you didn't know, that's me saying that. I'm just making shit up. Amazed by what he saw, Amon circled the signal marked 6EQUJ5 and wrote, "Wow!" in the margin, a reaction that has since become incredibly iconic in the search for extraterrestrials. You've seen this. You've seen the wow signal. There's a movie about it. It's called Alien. You ever seen that Alien movie where she listens to the thing and it goes boom, 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 and that just happened to the Boeing ship? The sequence 6EQUJ5 might look like a random jumble of letters and numbers, but it isn't. It is an encoded message, my friends. It represents the signal's variation in intensity over time, and this means that the signal was a continuous wave with little to no modulations or interruptions. And if that sounds a bit complex, I'm not going to explain it. That's just the way it is. Just kidding. Think of it this way. The signal lasted for a significant amount of time. It was strong, and it remained consistent throughout. Its length intensity, and the lack of interruptions made it particularly noteworthy. Its shaft, its girth, its length, its... it was very impressive. On a heat map, the signal's intensity appeared as a striking white mark on a typically inactive channel, which was regularly monitored without much activity. So this guy's life is boring as shit, and finally something fucking interesting happened. The outlier signal was highly unusual, and it is no wonder that Eamon was genuinely astonished by this discovery. Finally, something happened! By the way, I admit I may not be the best at explaining the technical specifics, but if you are interested in a deeper understanding, I highly recommend checking out the Cool World YouTube channel, where they explain it way better than I possibly ever could.
The WOW signal was only recorded in one channel number 2 of the 50 possibilities, which means that its power is limited to within a 10 kilohertz window, or even possibly much smaller.
What I can tell you though is that this radio frequency couldn't have been a fluke. It's so specific and unique that no known radio sources could produce this type of signal, and it stands out as something completely distinct and bizarre. And thanks to the Big Ear telescope and its feed horns, we can even make an educated guess as to where it originated. Now, I keep saying telescope. What the f? How's a telescope read sound and shit? How the f is that possible? That's what I say when I learn about that. Are you telling me everything's a wave and it's all just different frequencies? Man, that makes me really not want to kill my neighbor so much. Or whatever. Peace and love. The telescope provided 2 different right ascension values, which indicates the spherical angles relative to Earth. And in more technical terms, the galactic coordinates from the positive horn were this, and for the negative horn, this. This area corresponds to a region in the constellation Sagittarius, which the closest star being Tau Sagittari. So not Zeta Reticuli, nothing cool like that. It was Tau Sagittari. What the f does this have to do with the CIA? I'll get to it. There are multiple hypotheses regarding the origin of this signal, with some suggesting it could have been a rotating lighthouse-like source, a signal sweeping in frequency, or a one-time burst, some kind of fluke, some kind of strange thing we don't yet understand. Various scientific theories have also speculated that the signal might have been a reflection off of space debris or an illegally transmitted signal within the 1420 megahertz frequency range, which also is possible and, seems more likely than aliens. Interestingly, it is indeed illegal for terrestrial sources to transmit on that frequency because it's like an important one. It is reserved exclusively for astronomical studies, which is pretty interesting, It's kind of cool we have reserved frequencies, but guy, if I didn't know that shit, you give me a ham radio, I'm gonna start transmitting. I didn't know you need a license for that shit. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's my formal apology. Anyways, these explanations seem to be particularly improbable because replicating that specific noise over such a long duration would be nearly impossible with current equipment that we have. And if the signal were terrestrial, meaning it originated from our own planet, maybe that's a more likely explanation, because then you could even that possibility is difficult to confirm given the unique characteristics of the signal, the wow aspects of it. But let's just say there are terrestrials potentially responsible for this signal. Who are they? Some speculate that it was the United States government, though the specifics of their involvement remain unclear. Pretty usual. One theory suggests it was a part of a disinformation campaign, possibly to distract the public with the idea of alien contact while something else was happening behind the scenes. So it's like, wow, signal, Project Bluebeam, let's launch a signal. And then it's like, maybe Elvis he'll live instead of die. We don't want people to be so upset, so we need to go whoop, whoop, whoop. Elvis died the next day after the signal came out. The King of Rock, rest in peace. That sparked its own conspiracy theories. Maybe he was killed by aliens. I don't know, dude. Additionally, the Voyager 2 spacecraft was launched into space just a few days later, which some believe could have been an attempt to divert attention from a larger, undisclosed event as well. I don't really know what the hell happened. You think something would have come out by now. It's been 50 years. Another theory posits that the United States government may have created an artificial signal for the scientific community to detect as a way to test public reaction to potential alien contact. So, what happens when aliens come? Let's find out. We got to know because they're coming. But still, once again, it's been 50 years. So it's like, they haven't come yet, and I'm getting tired. I'm getting tired of waiting. I've only been here for half that time, and I'm tired of waiting. I just want them to come. Yeah, anyways, they could have been observing whether people would panic or not, ever since that H.G. Wells War of the Worlds meme happened in the 1930s. I'll probably do a video about that one day. But, observing hysteria is creating hysteria. It's an interesting thing that the government has done a lot to be honest. So the idea may sound far-fetched, but it is not outside the realm of possibility because the CIA has done way more fucking weird shit. There are more plausible explanations though, such as the signal was maybe an accident. And in spite of months of research and focused efforts on that region of space, the signal was never detected again. It is conceivable that the government may have tried to conceal the origin of the signal because it was inadvertently linked to classified military technology. That's also potentially, and given the alien craze at the time, fueled by events of the Roswell incident just 30 years earlier, it is no surprise that people jumped quickly to the conclusion that it was alien in origin. I would, but I'm very unreasonable, so, you know. Could be that, kind of, maybe one of those things. I'm not exactly sure. Fun fact, though, the signal was so unique that several attempts to recover and identify it have failed, and to this day, nearly 50 years later after its first detection, no one has ever been able to find the signal again. But on the 35th anniversary of its discovery in 2012, the Arecibo Observatory marked the occasion by beaming a digital stream into space. And this transmission included about 10,000 Twitter messages organized by Nat Geo as a part of a promotion for one of their new shows, #Chasing UFOs. Along with the tweets, videos from celebrities like Stephen Colbert, Jorge Garcia, and the 2011 Miss Universe were also sent. Stephen Colbert's message read, "Greeting, intelligent life form. I am Stephen Colbert, and I come to you with an important message on behalf of the people of Earth. We are not delicious. In fact, we are kind of gamey, and we get stuck in your teeth. It's really embarrassing at a job interview. If you want something good to munch on, go to the Crab Nebula and bring a bib. Seriously, all you can eat." That is so funny.
Greetings, intelligent alien life forms. I am Stephen Colbert, and I come to you with an important message on behalf of all the peoples of the Earth. We are not delicious. In fact, we're kind of gamey. And we get stuck in your teeth. It's really embarrassing at a job interview. If you want something good to munch on, go to the nearby Crab Nebula and bring a bib. Seriously, all you can eat.
That is so hilarious. This guy must be a comedian. He has to be. So zany and so whimsical. How fucking weird is that we sent shit into space? Like as some kind of joke, but there's a football field sized spaceship on the other side of the moon that just got it and they're like, "Do what?" So yeah, I don't know if the government was involved. I feel like they probably weren't, and I'm just making shit up. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. The WOW signal is one of my favorite little memes throughout history, and I figured it'd be kind of cool to throw that in there. There are a lot of conspiracies that people think that the CIA was directly involved in this. There's no evidence at all that they were involved. Like the other things that we've talked about today, there's a lot of evidence. This one, none. Literally none at all. The Stargate Project. In 1977, the United States government initiated a secret project known as the Stargate Project, also many other names. But this program focused on investigating the potential for psychic phenomena, specifically remote viewing for military and domestic applications. Remote viewing involves the ability to physically perceive events, locations, or information from a great distance. Very interesting. We've talked about MK Ultra before. I'll have a link to that video down below, or probably not, because I'm not gonna do it, and the guy who does it, I ain't gonna tell him to do it, so it's just look up Oompaville MK Ultra, type that in or whatever. Anyways, the project was based at Fort Meade, Maryland, and consisted of a small team of no more than 20 brave men. The project was conceived largely on a hunch that was influenced by secondhand reports of similar experiments being conducted in other countries, particularly by the Soviet Union. And both the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency were deeply interested in the project and sought to learn everything that they could about all potential applications of psychic abilities. Several programs within the Stargate Project were approved and eventually funded as needed, and to maintain the integrity of the experiments, the test results and work reviews were kept hidden from the remote viewers to avoid discouraging them if their perceptions were inaccurate, which is really interesting. Don't tell them the truth. Let them believe. It might hurt them. They won't grow. Additionally, any feedback given to the viewers was kept classified and secret, ensuring that the participants remained focused on their tasks without outside influence or bias. In the 1970s, the United States became concerned that the USSR was reportedly spending around 60 million rubles annually on psychotronic research, which is an area of study that focused primarily on psychic phenomena. 60 million rubles, that's like $300, all right? We gotta up our game. We spend 600 billion a year on defense. We might as well spend at least 60 million rubles on psychotronic. Why don't we still do that? I feel like we should still be investigating psychic shit. That would be cool. That's 600 grand, 60 million ruble. Anyways, dude, what the f? You just get a rich guy and he'd do that. So all this information prompted the United States to investigate the potential of such phenomena for its own purposes. Obviously, you can't let them get ahead. If they got psychics, we gotta have psychics too. Among those eventually tested in the Stargate Project was a former Burbank police officer and an ex-Scientologist known as Pat Price, who became involved in one of these experiments.
CIA hired Price away from us, and 4 months after joining the CIA, Price was dead.
And the big question is, was he killed or was it a natural death?
Like in the movies, you want to know, did he jump or was he pushed?
What do you think?
Using maps and photographs provided by the CIA, Price claimed to have successfully retrieved information about a secret Soviet facility located behind enemy lines. And his apparent success led to his immediate full inclusion into the Stargate Project. This project, by the way, was taken so seriously that in July of 1975, he died, and his death under mysterious circumstances led to a ton of speculation. He reportedly died of a heart attack in his Las Vegas hotel room, but no autopsy was ever performed, and this was allegedly due to the intervention of an unknown individual with a briefcase.
He had a heart attack, so even though he died unattended in a hotel room, they decided, they meaning the hospital and the police, to not make it a medical examiner case. So they didn't do an autopsy.
Unknown individual with the briefcase, AKA the G-Man. This led to conspiracy theories surrounding his death and its connection to his work in the Stargate Project. Very interesting. Also, this guy went from Scientology to the Stargate Project. That's crazy. This guy's a rock star, a psychic rock star, fighting his old lives and his demons and his trauma, his ancient thetans. And then he went to the Stargate Project. Out of the notable tests within the Stargate Project, one involved locating a lost Soviet spy plane in 1974. Rosemary Smith, a young assistant recruited by the project director Dale Graff, played a crucial role in this operation. Using her remote viewing abilities, Smith successfully identified the location of the plane, and her information was so accurate that when a team was sent to the location she had described, they indeed found a villager carrying a part of the aircraft. This event was considered a confirmed success and then further validated the potential of remote viewing and intelligence operations and psychotronic effectiveness. Warfare. Pretty crazy. Success of finding the Soviet spy plane location led to further tests and the recruitment of additional personnel with apparent psychic abilities who contributed to various military efforts. All the way forward in time during the Gulf War, for example, some remote viewers were reportedly able to locate Scud missile sites. That's right, guys. Conflict Desert Storm. My uncle was fighting, sniping, laying in the same spot for 3 weeks, and you had people back in Guantanamo, not in Guantanamo, that's Cuba, in I don't know, New York City, just like, Scud missile, Iraq, Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, Stargate. Another notable figure in the program was a fellow by the name of Ingo Swann, who achieved significant results and helped shape the project's methodology. Swann was instrumental in developing the framework known as the coordinate remote viewing, which became a foundational aspect of the Stargate Project, and one of Swann's most remarkable achievements was his remote viewing of Jupiter, where he described the planet's rings, an observation that was later confirmed by the Pioneer 10 spacecraft in 1973. That's insane. Dude was like, Jupiter, it's got rings. And then they're like, oh, wow. And then years later, they actually realize it. They're like, that guy's a genius. This unexpected success gave Swann considerable credibility amongst both researchers and intelligence agencies. His work, along with other successful tests, contributed to the project's growing reputation within circles in the government, and these and many other successful experiments are documented in declassified materials highlighting the various bizarre achievements of the Stargate Project, among others, MKUltra, etc. There's a lot of this weird mind shit. The Stargate Project underwent numerous modifications and changes over the years, and in 1985, it was renamed to Project Sunstreak as a part of a series of reorganizations and rebranding efforts. I don't know why they got to rebrand and shit. The project continued to evolve and was renamed several more times. several more times, including names like Center Lane and Grill Flame. Those are terrible names. Bunch of different names, but over time, the core objective remained the same, and that was the investigation and utilization of psychic phenomena for military and intelligence purposes. And that's the CIA, baby girl. That's the CIA for you. Okay? There were critics, by the way. They argued that the project was based on insane, outlandish claims, and there was a lack of reliable and reproducible results, which that's what you get when you just lie a lot. And in 1995, the CIA commissioned an evaluation of the program's effectiveness, and the review concluded that while there were some interesting findings, the results were far too inconsistent to justify continued funding, and as a result, the Stargate Project was officially terminated in 1995. Oh, we can't have fun anymore in our fun little remote viewing thing anymore. Oh, we can't spend taxpayer dollars. We can't waste taxpayer dollars on that, but we can waste them on other shit? Dude, do that again, bro. F all that other nonsense. Do that shit. Do that. That's way cool. Anyways, after it was officially terminated, a lot of the program's documentation was declassified, and these declassified documents are incredibly interesting. There's some confirmed tests. They're crazy. You think that it's all insane and crazy, but it's legit. There's some legit stuff. It's weird. On top of this, there are a whole rabbit hole of declassified CIA documents that delve into the potential of the human mind and, deep meditation, things like that. There are a lot of documents on it. They're complex. They hint at the idea that the mind might be capable of far more than what we currently understand, and that is documented by the CIA. Just because it's documented by the CIA, though, doesn't mean that it's true or makes sense or rational or based in science. They are humans. They can make mistakes, but it is interesting. Makes for good videos and content, okay? I'm probably gonna end up doing a full video on all the mind shit from the CIA. There's a lot of it, and it's very interesting. Yeah, a lot of very strange mysteries. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Go to sour.gg, buy some candy, go to the Gump Club, watch some uncensored videos, okay? Gump.club and sour.gg. You just type those in your browser and they'll go. Yeah, let us know what you guys wanna see, and I'll see you in the next video.